to
ahead.
be a lesson on prefixes, and actually, I like the way he breaks down. Oh, you weren't in the last class, but he probably does it in this one too. He breaks down a lot of words. I've noticed that in traits and stuff, and that really is important. Like, are you gonna go? You plan on going to college?
No.
What are you gonna do? Hairdressing? You're like
No.
an artist. So,
I am an artist, thank you, but I'm going to go into flight attendant.
wow, that's
I
cool.
want to travel, get out of this place.
From New York City, it's good to like see different places. I've been to a lot of places, and you can learn. But you know, it turns out people are the same everywhere. Like,
They're all
but it's
just
nice to see. Well, I agree with you. A lot. There's a lot of nice people though. Actually, the more you get out of the country and different places, you can. So let's start with this. Okay, can you define any of those words that have the prefix semi?
Semi-sweet.
semicolon.
Oh, good that you thought of a new one. I'm going to write that down. So we're going to call you number one. Semi-sweet. And that's one word. I was going to ask if you could think one. So you know semicolon. How about semicircle?
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means?
Yeah, top of the circle.
Great. Biographical?
Semi-automatic.
Good. And what do they all have in common? We'll call you two.
They're act.
Right. Pretty simple. So you could, and what about semi-aquatic? Because that means they're going to give you a check as the means. How about semi-aquatic? So
Like they live in the water.
they what? Yeah, they live on the water. Like it's like
Yeah,
half and
like both.
half and half, exactly. And semi-domesticated.
Never heard of it.
But since now that you know what semi means, what do you think it might mean?
Have to domesticate it.
Exactly. Like it could be like they started taking these cats out of the wild and breed like really wild cats from Africa and breeding them with catty cats, and they made this. Actually, I used to have a cat African with the thing loved to swim if I left the bathtub full of water. After the bath, the thing would literally jump in and put wet kitty footprints all over the house. It's very cool cat. All right, so you don't need context clues because you guys already got that one down. So now you can identify the words. You already did that because you know what? You guys are really smart. Okay, so you guys were doing diurnal yesterday, and that means a 24-hour day. So don't keep. How many high tides are in a diurnal tide? Like in a day? How many high tides?
Oh, high tide's one.
Good. How many low tides? In a diurnal day.
9.
There's like high tide and low tide. It's only one. And do you remember where that happens? Like when you get a diurnal tide? Because what do you get in the oceans? And this is a weird one because semi-diurnal, you know, semi means half. So you're like, well, and that actually has 2 high tides and 2 low tides in a day. But it's because in a half a day, it has a cycle. But then the other half of the day, it has another cycle. So you have 2 high tides and 2 low tides. Do you think that sounds normal for the beach? Do you ever, I guess you don't fish. 'Cause
I
then-
used to fish up in Ohio, but that's
That's
because
lake fishing, though.
Yeah.
Obviously.
never deep sea fishing.
Yeah, well, do you kind of remember which one the ocean has? Like 1 high tide or 2 high tides a day?
I'd say 2 or 1.
Well, yeah, no, okay. The way he taught it yesterday was the longer word has more tides in it too. But it's also a half a day, so this one has 2 high tides and 2 low. But the ocean, yeah, it has 2, because like when I used to go fishing, it was in the morning you had high tide, and then late in like the evening you'd have another high tide. And this one used to happen. This one happens like he was explaining in the Gulf of Mexico because the water takes kind of longer to go in and come out and stuff like that. You guys are doing like really good. Let's see. How about the prefix A? Alright, can you define any of those words? How about you? Do you know what immoral means?
Moral.
Immoral. Do you know what moral means?
Yeah.
What?
It means something inside of you that it He's telling you to do the right thing.
Exactly, like having morality and being moral. And how about you? Abiologic? Well, that's what moral means, but that's not what you mean. So, can you do acellular? How about asexual?
Asexual means that they can't breed.
Right, because it doesn't have sex. So A actually means the word no, right? It means not, without.
Without. That's what I was
So now, so for this one, I'll kind of remove that, but now now can you kind of figure out what amoral might mean? Exactly. Somebody's like a psychopath or something.
Oh, look, it's my uncle.
A few of those. How about abiologic? Right, it could be like, a locker or something. It doesn't have any biological things. Abroad, because it also means it means away, or well, actually abroad.
Technically, lockers are not abiotic. They're made of metal, and metal is usually. Oh yeah, true.
No, you could be right, because that's more of a chemical thing. I was just meaning abiologic, meaning, not containing anything lifelike or something. You can Google or
like the floor.
anything, or like the sun. How about, let's take this word out and make some words come from the Latin and some come from the Greek. It's a really long story how that happened. I'll put it on a minute, I'll tell you because it's fascinating. So asexual means like without sex, like you said before. Like some things can breed, but they don't have like a single cell. Like it's not a male or a female. It just goes ahead and breeds. So now you can pretty much define them all because you know what A means. Because once you kind of know what these prefixes mean, like the A there and like the A here, so now can you define these words? Oops. Do you remember this from yesterday? How about helium? Because this is a root word, kind of like a HE double toothpicks. It's really, really hot. So it stands for the sun or the moon. Which one do you think stands for the sun or the moon?
The helium stands for the sun.
Excellent.
And the apogee stands for the moon.
Right, and the A means what?
Without.
Right. So
So
or it also
without
means
the moon.
far too.
Far from the moon.
Yeah.
Alaska.
That's so cool because if you have a trip that you couldn't remember things like when he talks about taking the ACTs and the SATs, if you remember like things like that, they'll ask you a question.
Well, the thing is that helium is actually one of the chemical bonds that make up the suns.
That's true, and that's like a good way to any way that you can start remembering words. Does anybody want to type in some answers? Because you guys are supposed to do something like digital too. Okay, so can you define any of these words here? You want to go first typing?
Sure.
You can be student number one. Well,
What am I typing in these
just
words?
like if you can either type in like the number 1, 2, 3, or you can try to define them, whatever you want to do. Like
A thermometer. How's the temperature?
good. How about you? Type in your number 2. So can you define one of those words up there? And if you can, just put a question mark, because you'll see how easy it is to come back and do it in a second. Oh, you want to just type in something? Oops. Yeah, but without a mouse and stuff, it took me like forever. Do you know how that you can do that? Huh? Do you know? Can you guess what it means?
Yeah.
What?
It's heat from nuclear waste.
Nuclear waste, which is the same thing. So perfect. So type that one.
I have an advanced thinking, so.
You must be good in chemistry or math or something too, no?
Yeah, basic math I'm not good at. Advanced
claustrophobic. These are really important words in science. Phile and phobe. Phobe means like, can you think of like claustrophobic?
It's a fear.
Exactly. So what do you think? Right. So what do you think that would be like kind of a
Afraid of
fear
heat.
or dislike of like heat? Right.
Yeah.
Like let's say some organisms like a polar bear. He would technically not really be a thermophobe, but you get the idea. It's probably relating more to cells that have to live in very cool climates. And how about phile means that it loves something, and that's a word that comes up a lot in science.
Just like people who set things on fire.
Not arsonists, paraphiliacs, right? People who like love to do. I think that's people who like fireworks. So the thing is, when you can look at a root word, it becomes because you know what nuclear means, and you kind of know. And if you start learning some root words too, and it's like, can you think of any other words that start with thermo? I think you learned one.
Thermal
Yes.
waste.
And you can always. Do you remember the thermohaline circulation from yesterday?
No, we didn't do this like stuff with our report cards, so we didn't do this in our class.
So we know what thermo means. What does halene mean? Dude.
Sun.
Helium. Helio is sun. Halene actually means salt.
So
So like,
So heating salt.
well, yes. So if you're talking about currents, and let's think of the North Pole. So what do you think is driving the currents in that kind of? What would it be? It would be the temperature,
the
heat,
and
and
the
the
salt
salt.
in the water.
Excellent. So what really happens is like it gets really cold, so you build icebergs. But what happens to the water if it all freezes? What happens to the salt content?
It can melt
And
ice.
then it goes to the
I
bottom.
know that from when
does
I
go to
lived
the
in
bottom.
Ohio.
Well, if all the water is going into here, does the salt go into the iceberg?
No.
That's right. So the water gets what? Saltier.
Saltier.
Right. So it gets dense and it gets cold and it starts sinking, and that's what drives like a lot of our. We have winds that drive currents, but deep down underneath, and that's the big terrible thing about polar melting is that we're going to lose. I don't want you to miss too much class. Okay, Perry, can you identify any of those? Okay. Do you have any idea what Perry?
I know periodontal has something to do with teeth.
Exactly. So, and pericardium. Do you know what about cardium? Cardium's like the heart, right?
Yeah.
So, if you knew that peri meant around or near and enclosing,
So periodontal would be like around the teeth.
exactly like your gums and stuff. And how about pericardium?
It's somewhere around the butt.
Heart. Cardio is like heart. Like I'm having a cardiac arrest. So it's actually like a sac that kind of surrounds your heart. And periderm is actually like this layer that surrounds some plant tissue. Or it could be derms, like dermis, like your epidermis and stuff like that. So when you know what peri means, then you can define words. Do you remember that you didn't do the periheline and perigree? I don't want you to miss that. But now that you know what peri means, which one would be close in orbit to the sun, to the earth, from the sun to the earth? Which one do you think, since peri means close or around? Right, because helium is sun, see? And which means the moon is closest to.
You know the helio, and if you take off the N,
Right,
helio,
right.
that's actually some sort. That's actually a sun god.
Is it really?
Yeah, from
Greek mythology?
no, not Greek
Oh,
mythology.
older than that, like pagan or something?
I think it was from the Aztecs.
Wow. Oh, that's right, because they had that whole sun god, whole calendar thing. It was pretty amazing, actually, what they could do back then.
Helio is the same as the sun.
It's always about sun, yeah. In a lot of languages, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
So, now we know that the suffix a means what?
Not.
or away.
Way over there.
I didn't explain that very well. So which one is the Earth furthest away from the moon in orbit? Would it be
Apogee.
Perfect. Which one's closer?
Perigee.
Right, that means the moon is closer. And which do you think will have more effect on tides when the moon is closer?
It would be perigee.
It would be closer, yeah.
That's right, because the moon pulls its gravitational pulls and actually makes the water swell on that side of the globe.
Wouldn't it be awesome if we didn't have a moon? Because then there wouldn't be any tides, and then
Probably some wind-based tides because the Earth rotates, but
no, because if you didn't have the moon, then there's no trees
Do you
whatsoever.
still have breeze?
yeah, because the Earth rotates on the glass.
Yeah. The Earth is what causes the breeze, not the moon.
Right. And actually, we're moving around pretty fast, and I always wondered how come we never feel it. Okay, so you guys did great. I was going to give you a check. Okay, real quick. Which one means one high tide and one low tide a day? Is it diurnal or semi-diurnal?
Semi-diurnal.
Alright, a good way to try to remember this, because this is a hard one, is because this means half, so it makes it real confusing unless you think through the whole thing. But this is probably going to be something you see on your, your end of year exam, end of course exam. The way to remember it is the semi-diurnal is the longer word.
Okay.
It's going to have the two high tides and the two.
Okay.
So which two processes drive thermohaline currents? Thermo is the
Heat and
right,
salt.
and
Sun,
haline salts.
salt.
We went really fast. You guys are doing great. So which one is described when the moon is closest to the? Is it apogee or perigee?
Perigee.
Perfect. So then which one when it's the furthest?
Apogee.
This is when the sun is furthest from the Earth. So now we're doing the sun.
Apogee.
Perfect. You guys did amazing. Thank you so much.